Welcome back everyone. Time to do another special late 2020 review of a phone that I personally love. I think one of the most popular devices I've ever talked about was probably not this specific phone, the iPhone SE, but more so the iPhone SE 2 or the iPhone SE 2020. That was a crazy device that eventually, was released, but I made so many leaks, so many renders, and, it really actually helped out this channel a lot, and it really helped me grow on Instagram too, because a lot of people looked at those renders that I made and reposted them. But this is the predecessor of that device and pretty much a universally loved iPhone. This device, I don't really know that many people who hate on it. I think really the only problem that people have with it as of this day and age, especially in the later part of 2020, would probably be the software, whether it's still going to be supported or not. I am pretty sure, I'm like 99% positive this phone is going to be ending on iOS 14. I have literally no reason to believe it's going to go any further, but don't take my advice for it. Look at past Apple devices. I'm pretty sure the 6S, the SE, they have the same chipsets. I'm pretty sure the 6S is not going to be getting iOS 15, but I hope I'm totally wrong. But even iOS 14, I think out of all the devices that I installed iOS 14 on so far, this has been probably one of the more stable devices. I think obviously, discounting the newer ones like the 11 Pros and the 11s, I think even going down to like the iPhone XS's, I think the SE is pretty much up there in stability, which is really, really nice. Now, what's really interesting is that this device is turning 4 years old. Well, it's already past 4 years old, but it's going to be turning 5 years old next year. And it doesn't really feel like it. I remember when this thing came out and a lot of people liked it, and people liked that smaller type of body, that 4-inch panel on it, even though it wasn't OLED, even though it technically wasn't even HD. I think a lot of people still liked it, and people were more focused on the form factor and the price tag of it. And Apple eventually redid it this year with the iPhone SE 2. And I compared those two phones. I eventually said the SE 2 is still the better device, but I still think this original SE is one of the best priced iPhones, and probably, price per value, it's probably the sweetest spot in my opinion. You can pick these things up for like less than $100 everywhere, and I'll find the cheapest one on Amazon and link it down in the description below if you want to pick it up from there. You can also help support the channel at the same time. And we know that people love these older iPhones, and not necessarily older iPhones, but cheaper devices, because time and time again, almost every single device that's cheaper does the best in sales. We saw with the 10R, the iPhone 11, I'm pretty sure the SE2 is killing it in sales, and we saw it before with the S10e, Galaxy S10e, and Samsung just made another budget device, the Galaxy S20 FE, and then we have the OnePlus Nord. There's so many budget phones out there, even the Pixel 4a. And with this iPhone SE, it was pretty much those phones just, back in the day. And this year we see that iPhone 12s could potentially reincarnate this exact same body as well. And that's another humongous thing that's changed. This was, I think, the last iPhone to have that boxy design. After this, I don't think Apple has made another one that, since then they've been curved size and everything. And if this is going to be the iPhone 12 series, are going to be this type of phone reincarnated with, full edge-to-edge displays with the notch included. And this is going to be some really awesome stuff. Now you have that home button on the front too. I'm pretty sure everyone's okay with it. On the bottom, you have a headphone jack as well as the lightning port, which is really cool. Actually, I think the headphone jack is up top. It's on the bottom, I think. I totally forget. And on the back, aluminum back with glass panels on the top and bottom, and that single camera setup. And like I've said before, even with this iPhone SE, it's going to give you really decent photos for the price tag. I said the same exact thing for the iPhone 6S. Don't expect to get like the best looking photos or anything, but for a 2016 device, that uses the same camera as a 2015 device, I actually don't think it's that bad. Now, it's a single 12 megapixel sensor. You can do 4K at 30 on it. And like I stated before, it's a good camera setup for the most part. But if you're expecting to get like the best quality for the bang of buck or whatever, I think you might want to look elsewhere. I think even like the iPhone 10, even the iPhone 8, had a really good camera setup, iPhone 7 Plus included. I think this phone did a really good job at the time. But again, this is a smaller form factor. That is something that I really do like. And the fact that you have 4K 30 is really awesome. I'm glad they didn't tap it out at like 1080p or something like the iPhone 6 did. They put that same camera setup on the back that the flagship at the time had. And I have a lot of respect for Apple for doing that. And I never forgot that. Now, for the most part, it doesn't have, a crazy telephoto lens or ultra wide sensor, but I think for a majority of people, they understand that. And I think, like I said before, the biggest selling point will probably be the form factor. Now, on the front, however, this is probably one of my, most disliked aspects of this device. Now, it has a 1.2 megapixel camera, and you can do HD videos on it, but there's nothing else like, you can't do 4K on that, which is totally okay. But it's not that great of a sensor. Me personally, if the back camera was, god awful, I would have probably made a big deal about it too. But if that front camera was amazingly like one of the best ones ever, then I would probably be okay with it, because I use my front camera way more than I use my back camera. Literally for FaceTimes, for Zoom calls, for all sorts of things, I'm using my front camera all the time. And for a majority of people out there, I'm sure that's the case too. So this phone, it doesn't have the best looking front facing camera, but I think for a majority of people, like I stated before, it probably will be okay, and they understand that. If this was a phone that just came out in 2020, then I would make it a bigger deal, but this was a 2016 phone, so I kind of get where they were coming from at that point. And even in 2020, it still functions and everything, which is totally okay. So I think in terms of the camera, it's definitely okay, but one of the bigger changes we've had since even early on this year, the mid 2020 review I did of this phone, would definitely be the software. We have the next generation of software on it, and iOS 14 has been a pretty weird ride for a lot of people, but I think for when it comes down to it, it's probably going to be more stable once the next couple versions come out. And with the iPhone SE, it still supports it. It's still pretty smooth for the most part. I think it's slower than the iOS 13 update, but I think once the next generations come out, iOS 14.2, 14.3, I think it's going to be more stable than what we have right now. So that's another very important thing to keep in mind. I don't know how much longer this phone is going to be supported though, so that's another big thing. That's a big if, but if I had to say it, I will say it's like it's 50-50. I'm pretty sure it's going to stop at iOS 14. I hope it will continue going on, but we really don't know as of yet, so time will tell. But in terms of software, that really pretty much covers it up too. And in terms of the performance aspect of this device, this thing has that Apple A9 chip inside of it, has that dual-core CPU, and 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now, none of that has changed since obviously the first time this phone has been released, but still, I think for a lot of people out there, that Apple A9 chip was a really good step up from the A8 chip. But I think the biggest thing about this device is that 2 gig of RAM option. That's not even an option, it's what you get. And like I said before, that is a humongous asset for this device. If it had 1 gig of RAM, that would be totally weird like the iPhone 6, but this thing has that 2 gig of RAMs. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to be definitely okay for the most part. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best performing device. It's probably not even the best performing device of 2016, considering we got the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus that same year too. But what I've seen so far is that this phone can handle really everything you throw at it. It's definitely a smaller display, so there's less pixels to push, so that's another important thing. But definitely the software isn't helping it. iOS 14 has been, like I said before, it may have had a little bit of an impact on the performance, but I still think for a lot of people out there, if you're doing day-to-day things like text messaging, FaceTime calls, picking up, doing Uber, or like whatever the case is, like small apps like that, I think everyone will be okay. Like for me personally, I'm not sitting there and playing games every single day. I don't really depend on my phone a crazy amount. Now, when I'm on the go, I need an extremely stable device. I need a phone that can handle really everything I throw at it, and that's why I choose to use one of the newer phones. But if I didn't really need it anymore, I would definitely depend on something like this. Now, if you're editing videos and photos on your device and you're doing a lot of crazy stuff and you're playing video games all the time, then obviously this is probably not the best phone to pick up. But even then, I think it could handle a lot of things you throw at it. But I think, like I said, the screen is probably the biggest asset or the biggest problem for a lot of people because of the size of the phone. If you're doing a lot of bigger apps and bigger tasks, you may prefer a bigger phone. So getting an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus type of screen will be better for you. But again, it is what it is. I would probably tell you performance-wise, it hasn't really been affected too much with iOS 14. Maybe it's a little bit slower, but like I said, it'll get better over time. But I would still give it a thumbs up in my books. I think it's definitely better than not. So in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it up. And ending it off with the battery life, this thing has a 1,624 milliamp hour battery. And like I stated before, that is actually a pretty decent sized battery to have on this thing. Now, it has degraded over time. I bought it, I think, 3 years ago, and I think it's at around like 90 something percent, which is actually not that bad, or maybe it's 88% or something. But like I said, it's not bad. I treat my phones really, really badly. I let them die all the time. I don't charge them and all that stuff. And for it to be that low is pretty impressive. And you can even replace the battery on this thing pretty easily. It doesn't really require too many crazy resources. You just need to get the battery on eBay and then just get a toolbox, and you can get it hooked up in like less than $20. But again, is that for everyone? Obviously not. People prefer having a better battery life, and this thing doesn't have the best battery life for sure. But I'll probably say, like, at the end of the day, if you need to go day to day with using a phone, I think this thing will probably get you through the day. I think this battery life is actually better than the iPhone SE 2, but still, both phones aren't really that great in battery life anymore. And you're probably better off getting an iPhone 7 Plus or 8 Plus if you want better battery life. Even an iPhone 7, actually I think that has worse battery life than this thing. I think this thing is actually not bad, but again, it wouldn't be my first choice. And I would rank it somewhere between like an iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus, but definitely not that great. So in terms of everything, and even to answer the question, is the iPhone SE still worth it in the later part of 2020? I'll have to tell you, like, yeah, I think this thing is still worth it to, some people out there. It would not be my first choice to recommend to. It used to be, I think like last year or the year before, I would highly recommend the SE, but the way I would rank it is that I would not recommend a phone lower than an iPhone SE or an iPhone 6s right now. If you have to go and get a phone, do not go lower than a 6s or SE depending on any of your budgets. Now, if you're like literally only have like $10 to spend, then obviously that's different. But if you can go up to like $100 or $150, you can pretty much pull an iPhone 7, which I would probably recommend more than the iPhone SE. Or you can even pull, if you go up to $150 to $200, you can probably get a 7 Plus, maybe even a 6s Plus. And to a lot of people, that may be a little bit better. But there's still a lot of pros for the iPhone SE. You're getting, software versions for at least another year. You're getting pretty good performance. You're getting the Apple ecosystem for that low price tag, which is another thing. It's not that expensive. Parts to repair this phone isn't super expensive either. You can literally pull a screen from eBay and all these other things and fix it yourself. It doesn't really take that much effort to use this phone, and it's super frictionless. You don't really need to worry about too much stuff. It doesn't excel in anything, but it's not really horrible in anything either, maybe besides battery life. But other than that, like, I think it's a totally fine pickup. But like I said, I would probably recommend going to at least like an iPhone 7 Plus. If you could, an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus would probably be the better ones and probably the best ones I would recommend at this time. But I think in terms of everything, that pretty much covers it up. I'll leave a 8 Plus and iPhone 8 link down in the description too. So that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. More importantly, everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.